phase that I talked about earlier used bare land. This new phase of development aggrandizement boldly asserts the developer's right to come into iconic areas and impact them in harsh, transformative ways. We may lose Old Myakka. We might see Siesta Village become Brevard or Fort Lauderdale. And the celery fields could face noise, light, traffic, and runoff that right now are not there. We might call this the obnoxious phase of our ambitious development. But what we can be sure of is impacting wonderful settled areas of the county will be felt by everyone who lives here and loves these places. And whether these bold developers proceed depends on 5 elected officials on the county commission. They make all the decisions. So we all have a stake in trying to deal with these ambitious encroachments, and we all have one common problem: the board that seems to have jettisoned all respect for moderation, common sense, and a public-oriented, comprehensive vision. If we as citizens connect county-wide, we can say to the board with one voice, this is not okay, and we are pulling the plug on your tenure in office. Right now, we're all in like our little silos. I think they designed the gated communities so that you'd never know what was going on next door. It's like you're in your silo. The information never circulates. And this is kind of what we're trying to do, is just say, this is happening, it's affecting all of us, let's talk about it. In coming months, we're going to have sessions dealing with how to put the public back into the planning process. We'll look at flood zones. We'll explore dark money. And we'll talk about how we can empower our role as citizens by learning how the planning process works. In fact, next month, we're going to talk about how to exert our leverage as citizens in that process. Sura Kochman, who's here right now, is going to help us with that. She has worked hard on Siesta Promenade. And speak of the devil, Susan Shutley just walked in, and she will also be helping us with that. Susan, you gotta come up here.
Come on, Susan, don't be shy.
So, if we as citizens connect countywide, we can say to the board with one voice, oh, I said that right, okay. So Sura and Susan will share their experience gathered from years of grappling with county processes. Ultimately, we need to learn how to stand up for our valued places and to say, don't even think about changing these and destroying a county that has become hugely popular precisely because we once had the vision and sense to not overdo things, to rein in the developer's impetus for profit. And with that, I'm going to ask Mike from Old Myakka to give us a brief update before we hear from our other speakers.
All right, Mike Hutchinson. I actually represent Keep the Country Country. If you've seen the yellow signs, that's a slogan that Betty IS came up with years ago. We also now have a.
Can't hear you, Mike.
It's not working?
Can't hear you well. Speak up a little bit.
Is that better? Still not picking it up?
Can you hold it by your mouth?
No, it's on. Yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Better.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold it up. So Keep the Country Country was a slogan that Becky Ash came up with. We now have a 501c4, which Susan's the president, I'm the treasurer of. And so that's working in the northeast corner of Sarasota County. That's the area we're talking about. And as Tom was saying, big chunks of that area are already being developed. Hi-Hat Ranch is developing, if I remember right, almost 15,000 homes, 13,900 or something like that, all the way up Fruitville Road. And currently the big fight is Lakewood Ranch wants to expand from the end of University in an arc out Fruitville, basically leapfrogging a large section of 5 and 10 acre homes. And that's the fight that's in the administrative courts right now. The administrative judge ruled against, my wife and I are the ones, the principals in it, and Becky Ayash is, what do you call it, Susan? What's Susan, Becky on our lawsuit?
We need to hear you better.
Intervener.
She's the intervener.
We're not
Okay.
hearing you, Mike.
Yeah, so we have the lawsuit, it's an administrative judge ruled against us, ruled in favor of Lakewood Ranch. It's now in the hands of the Department of Commerce, and they will either go with her recommendation or rule in the same favor as the judge. So that's the process. And what's involved there is Lakewood Ranch basically made a huge change to the comprehensive plan, and in effect, the 2050 part was pretty well gutted, okay? So that's what we're fighting there. Our attorney and us, we all feel we have a good case and we're not going away. We have a couple small issues going on right now. We just had a fight over a dirt mine they wanted to put on Fruitville Road. We actually had a small victory in that they're not gonna be allowed to take the dirt out on Fruitville Road right now. That road is already in the morning a monster road. It's just totally heavy traffic. So we have at least a temporary win there. How did you make out at Freedom Ranch?
We lost 3-2.
3-2, planning commission?
Yeah, but we did have a success today. A requested variance within the Myakka River Protection Zone was continued. So they agreed to work with staff to try and come up with a better solution to perceived erosion problems. So that maybe sort of balances out the loss on the special exception on the mega church. I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Anything else you think we need to cover? I think that's everything we have on Old Myakka area. Thanks.
I guess you want me to introduce David? Okay. As our hotspot input tonight, we've asked David Ianotti from Northport to come and give us an update on the situation with the risks posed to Warm Mineral Springs with the city's ideas about privatization. And it's a very timely topic because just recently privatization about Bobby Jones Park in the city of Sarasota has come up. So it's clearly an issue that's going to be impacting all of us. And so we're going to ask David to give us a brief update. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, a little bit too close. So thank you for having me here. First of all, it's great to be amongst people that have concern about the community. I think countywide, it's really important that we have a group of people that can get together to discuss these types of things. There are people who do care and they don't know what to do. They don't know who to join, where to voice things. I'll try and make this really brief. Some background, Warm Mineral Springs. Most people probably in Sarasota County are aware of it, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people who live in Northport aren't aware of it. Many people aren't aware that manatees use the outflow from the creek as a cold weather refuge. So FWC calls it the most important natural warm water refuge for manatees. It's actually, in Southwest Florida, it's the only natural warm water refuge. One of the things that's incredibly interesting about Warm Mineral Springs is we actually have a contemporary account from 1875. So there's a book called Wildlife in Florida by Townsend, which you can find the entire book scanned online. You actually have a description of the Myakka River, and you have an expedition going down the river in a canoe and going to Warm Mineral Springs and describing Warm Mineral Springs and actually using a thermometer to take the temperature. So to me, that's pretty exceptional that we have that. Again, though, it's something that as a natural resource has never been protected properly. So this is something that would have formed some 20,000 years ago as a sinkhole and happened to be fed from vents in the aquifer, one of which was hot. And that's why we have Warm Mineral Springs. We have a mixing of cold, which would be 72 degree, and hot vents. And when it gets to the surface, it's about 85 degrees, at least presently. In the book from 1875, I believe they actually, I'm not sure how good their thermometer was, but they say it's about 89 degrees. So potentially that's evidence of cooling. We don't really know. We know that the spring itself is a 5th magnitude spring and it is declining in its output. Since the 1940s, it was pretty much used as a bathing destination. Sarasota County, if you were to go on their website, has remarkable aerial photos of the entire county, and you can see Warm Mineral Springs there. It's the only thing in Northport. Northport is entirely a slough at that time. You can see the multiple sloughs from the Mayaca Basin, the watershed, and it's the only development at the time. You have a road going into it. So it remained in private hands up until, I want to say, it was about 2009, and the private owner went into bankruptcy. The county of Sarasota and the city of Northport co-purchased it, argued over what to do with it. County wanted to put a hotel there. The city said, we're absolutely against development at Warm Mineral Springs, and eventually became the sole owner of it. In 2018, the city of Northport spent $155,000 to have a master plan developed based off of community input, as well as staff input, and that was the 2019 master plan that anybody who really followed Warm Mineral Springs thought was going to happen, which was very minimal amenities, a connection to the Legacy Trail, which at the time had not been extended to Northport, and now is, and basically to respect the nature of this place. And there was some development proposed there, small event space, possibly outdoor weddings, things of that nature. 2 years ago, the city of Northport just kind of drastically out of nowhere announced they were going to pursue a 3P or P3, which is a public-private partnership. And this is something that actually was born out of the Department of Transportation. P3s are designed for the government basically to have private companies that may have better expertise, money, and equipment to initially do large road projects. As it's defined in state statutes, it talks about it having to have a clear public use, otherwise it's not valid. What the city of Northport interpreted that somehow to mean was that they could give away the 60 acres in a 99-year lease to a developer and have 300 plus timeshare condos built, as well as a multi-story hotel and a pot at Warm Mineral Springs. So this was obviously very disturbing for anybody who cares about any kind of balance in development or has any kind of reverence for that site. I'm not somebody who goes bathing at Warm Mineral Springs. Many people do believe it has special healing powers. That's not me. But I do respect the archaeology, the history of the place, and the fact that it created an absolutely amazing habitat. So that sinkhole, as water levels rose over the millennia, eventually created this habitat for manatee. You have Warm Mineral Springs Creek or Warm Mineral Springs Run. It doesn't even really have an official name. It's kind of amazing. You know, there's many people I would say manatees in Northport, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, yes, over 100 of them come into that creek, have been documented in there. It's a small, tortuous creek. The road that goes into Warm Mineral Springs, Ortiz Boulevard, actually covers the outflow. There's just a pipe underneath there. That shouldn't be there. I mean, there should be a bridge there at minimum. So the whole site has never been properly respected, and this P3 process the city undertook failed. I'm not quite sure how they can explain what they said. They said that at the last minute, which was 2 weeks ago, that the developer wasn't interested in running the operations of the springs. Well, that was, in essence, the whole purpose of this joint development between the private developer and the city. So now we're at a place where the P3 has failed. The citizens have been pretty clear that they never wanted this. The city is now again talking about or using language where they want to develop or sell a portion of the parcel that is Warm Mineral Springs. It's an 82-acre parcel. 20 of it is a protected area for the spring, and 61 roughly acres is what they're talking about shopping around. So anyone who cares to, I guess, just be visual, vocal, and present, we are going to have citizens in the community at the corner of Price and Sumter Boulevard, just holding signs, showing support for Warm Mineral Springs, and really, I mean, just being honest, disdain for the city of Northport government. This is something that people turned out for. When the city abandoned the master plan and announced the P3, there was outcry, and the city responded and said, well, what we're going to do, since the 2019 master plan was so long ago and it's no longer valid, is we're going to have a statistically valid survey. So they spent another $50,000-$60,000, and they had a national survey company come in, pick people based on demographics, so it was statistically valid, and send that out. And what they got was almost the exact same response as the 2019 master plan. They then had a commission meeting where they pretty shamelessly discredited their own survey. They wrote the questions to it, basically said it wasn't valid. So it was tough to watch, tough to see, and I'm not sure where it's gonna go, but I'm dedicated to at least speaking the truth about the police, and hopefully we get allies in the process, and just thank you for having me here.
Thank you, David, that was great, because I do think privatization issues are gonna be a hot topic for a while. And David's gonna stay here and be available for questions after John Paxton's talk. So, I'm gonna give a brief introduction for our guest speaker tonight. Most people